Hey guys, it's Nat and today I'm going to be sharing with you all the books I read in the month of October. I somehow miraculously ended up reading 7 books even though I was traveling for 3 weeks, so I'm very proud of myself. Most of these books I think I ended up finishing in the month of October. I did start them in the previous months, but anyway, let's just get on into the 7 books I ended up finishing in October. So the first book I ended up finishing in October was Daydream by Hannah Grace, and I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. So I picked this up as an audiobook. I've never read anything from this series, which I believe is called the Maple Hill series, but I really liked the premise of this story. So this is the 3rd book in the Maple Hill series, and it follows Henry and Hallie. Henry is struggling with one of his classes at college, so he ends up asking a bookish student, Hallie, to help him out. And this sounds like a typical jock needs tutoring from the female protagonist. And yes, that is the case, but it's also a little bit different than what you're usually used to, which I personally really liked. Like the way she helps tutor him is very different because he has some learning disabilities. So basically, he just struggles with processing large amounts of information. And also why Hallie is the perfect fit to help Henry is because the professor that he's struggling with, she really likes him and she really understands how to submit assignments for that professor. And why I also really enjoyed this story is because Henry is a sweetheart. This is more of a character driven story, which I actually didn't mind. Sometimes I do mind that, especially if I feel like I have no connection to the characters. But here, even though I didn't know them because I didn't read the previous 2 books, I still really loved Henry. Henry was a sweetheart. He was very understanding and very patient with Hallie because they kind of strike up a friendship and then they kind of fake date because Hallie is not only a reader, she works in a bookstore as well, but she also wants to be a writer, and she feels like she can't write romance because she has no romantic experience. So Henry helps her out in that sense, and I think it suited the story really well. It suited the characters. Hallie kind of really grew as a character and Henry was just there to support her. I really enjoyed this book and I definitely recommend the audiobook because it was a great listening experience. So yeah, my first Hannah Grace book and I really enjoyed it. So the next book is The Wingman by Stephanie Archer, and I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. So this was a new release, I believe. Let me check quickly. It came out on September 26th and I'm pretty sure I picked it up as soon as it came out. This is the 3rd book in the Vancouver Storms series, and I did previously read the other 2 books and I loved The Fake Out, which was the previous book, the 2nd book, and The Wingman did not disappoint. So in this one, as the title says, wingman. So Hayden Owens is a hockey player and he is really good friends with Darcy, but they only remained friends for so many years that they've known each other. They have known each other since university or college, and yeah, they remained friends because Hayden was good friends with her boyfriend of a couple years, and then yeah, Darcy ends up breaking up with her boyfriend because she could never be herself with her ex-boyfriend. She wanted to dye her hair lavender, she couldn't because the boyfriend didn't approve, or he was just never very understanding of her and her interests, and she ends up moving in with Hayden after she breaks up with her ex, and she decides that instead of being in a serious relationship, she just wants to date around. So of course she asks Hayden because he has been playing into this stereotype of a player for so many years, and in a playful way he kind of stops her from pursuing other guys because he's always had a crush on her. How they met at college, I think it was their first day of college, they have a mutual love of a fantasy romantasy series that was a book first and then got changed into a TV adaptation, so they always had that in common, and yeah, they always used to get on really well. And and I just really loved this book. Like, if you love Play Along by Liz Tomford, I think you will like The Wingman. They kind of give off similar vibes to Isaiah and Kennedy from Play Along, but in their own way. Like, I love them as much as Play Along couple, and that couple is one of my faves from this year. So yeah, I'm definitely very excited to pick up the 4th book in the Vancouver Storm series, which is gonna follow Volkov and Georgia, I believe. And Volkov, I need a grumpy hero, but Hayden is definitely not a grumpy hero, but he's very cute. And Darcy, I loved her. I love relationships in romance books where the hero is like supportive of the heroine and also just pushes her to live her dreams, be happy. This book was perfect, so that's why I got 5 out of 5 stars from me. The next book I ended up picking up, I actually have a physical copy of, and it is We Used to Live Here by Marcus Kliewer. So this is a newly released horror book. It's more like I would say like a thriller kind of psychological book, but basically we follow Charlie and Eve. They are kind of like house flippers, so they ended up getting a really good deal on a house. So they're redoing the house. They live there. It's going to take them a couple months to redo it and then sell it so they get some kind of profit. And Charlie one day is out doing errands, so Eve is left alone in this house and she hears a knock on the door. So she opens the door and there's a family. There is 2 sons, 1 daughter, and a mom and a dad. And the dad says, "Hi, I used to live here when I was younger. Would you mind if we took up 10 to 15 minutes of your time and I could show my family, especially my daughter who's very interested in this house, where I used to live?" Eve is a people pleaser, so of course she agrees, and weird things start happening as soon as the family enters the house. Charlie, so Eve's partner that went out, like she comes back for a little bit, but she ends up going missing. It's very psychological. You don't know what's real, like what's actually happening in this house and what's not real. I really enjoyed this book because not only is this told from the perspective of Eve, but in the book, like you get these weird like doc archives which kind of shows what happened in this town around this house in the past, and it's like making you doubt yourself. You don't know what's real. Is like Eve starting to go slowly crazy, or is the beginning of the book like messing up our perception of what is real in the story? And I loved that this book ended kind of openly. Like we don't know what truly happened or like what's gonna happen after the events happened in this one. I just really liked it. It was fast-paced. I'm very excited for the Netflix adaptation, and yeah, I'm very happy that I picked this up. This was actually a purchase I made in Amsterdam. So this book was kind of pricey. It was like 23 euros, which is like 19 pounds. I've never spent that much on a book, but I'm very happy I did because this was really good and I highly recommend. It's kind of slow-paced for some people because one of my friends picked it up and she's like, "Natalia, this is so slow paced. It's kind of boring." But you need to get into it. You have to grow attached to the characters, or you just need to stay there until strange things start happening with the family in the house. Then it gets really good. Like 4 out of 5 stars. Definitely a really good horror book to pick up. Not too scary, but kind of creepy. Okay, the next book that I picked up is another horror book, but it's a little bit different because it's erotica, and it is Come Out Wherever You Are by Harleigh Beck. I actually hated this book, so I gave it 1 out of 5 stars. So in this story, it's kind of like a short story, but we follow the female protagonist. 1 year ago, she killed the star quarterback of her high school, Nate, in a tragic car accident. Basically, she was driving with her best friend. She was driving her best friend's car, and it was raining. Her best friend was drunk and took drugs, and she was just a little bit drunk, and yeah, she ends up hitting Nate, and they cover up the accidental murder. And 1 year later, as like it rolls around to the anniversary of Nate's death. Strange things start happening. I don't remember the protagonist's name, but basically she sees Nate. Everyone else sees Nate come back. But it's kind of strange because Nate wants revenge. So he's doing like these awful things to the protagonist, and in the end, like, you find out some strange things. I didn't like anything about this book. I didn't like the characters. I didn't like the plot progression. I actually had like some kind of plot that I made up in my head about where I thought this book would go, but it ended up going in a completely different direction. Like, I don't like it when authors take a mental illness and just end a story like this. Like, if you've read this, you know, like, I actually don't recommend you read it. There's a lot of sexual abuse and like domestic violence, like just violence and abuse, and like so many awful things that Nate does to act out his revenge on the protagonist that I don't think she deserved, and it was just not erotic at all. I don't understand why this has like a 4 point something average rating on Goodreads, because it was awful to read. I ended up skimming most of the book because I just wanted to see how it would end, but it was just not good. So I don't recommend. The next book I ended up picking up is Outlive, The Science and Art of Longevity by Peter Attia and Bill Gifford. This is a non-fiction book about how to live longer. And I picked this up as an audiobook and I really enjoyed it. I ended up giving it 5 out of 5 stars. I picked up a lot of different things about how to live longer, but also live a healthier life. And I don't know, I really liked like how the authors tackled the science behind longevity and also like told the reader about diet and how not one diet will help one person live the longest. Like, everybody is different, so you could be living a vegan diet and you could live longer, or you could eat a meat-based diet and you would live longer. Like, it's all trial and error, and I really like that one of the authors, like, he put in his own experiences, because it just made it seem like the author knew that it's really hard to figure out how to live a healthy lifestyle. I also really liked how he talked about exercise and stuff like that. I don't know, I just really enjoyed this book. I would highly recommend picking up the physical edition though, because I feel like I missed out on a lot of information because I was listening to the audio version, but still an amazing book, and I'm probably gonna go back to it in the future. The next book is another romance, and it's a sports romance at that. So it is Play With Me by Becca Mack. This is the second book in the Playing for Keeps series, and this was my first book by the author and the first book that I read in this series, and I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. So basically in this one we follow Garrett, who is a hockey player, and Jenny, who is Carter's the team captains. So Garrett's captain's younger sister, and it's basically a romance between them. At first, Garrett kind of is very shy around Jenny, like she makes him nervous, but one day, like, he accidentally hears her taking care of herself and he hears his name as she's doing that. So he walks in and then, yeah, they kiss and they dive into their relationship or their like chemistry, physical chemistry, very quickly. And yeah, I really like that. Jenny and Garrett as characters were great characters. Garrett is like a shy, kind of understanding guy, and then Jenny is fiery and she's confident. But in the relationship department and like getting close to people, she's not. She has trouble making friends and like letting people in because she just thinks people want to be her friend or hang out with her or get close to her because of her brother, because he's like this famous hockey player and she is a dancer at college, so she hasn't graduated yet. But yeah, Garrett is the only one that really tries to get to know her after like they get comfortable with one another. And I, as I said, I really like Garrett and Jenny as characters, and even when Carter found out that they were like dating, I didn't mind how he kind of reacted to that. My problem with this book, it was way too long. As you probably could tell from my brief description of the book, they get together quite early on in the book, or they like have physical interactions, I should say. But why is the book 500 pages? Like, it was way too long, and it felt like it had way too many intimate scenes in it. I kind of skimmed over some of them because most of them were the same. One thing with Jenny, she would only do like oral stuff. With Garrett, and reading that for like 300-400 pages, like, it gets boring. So I don't know, I feel like this book could have been way more condensed and I would have enjoyed it way more. I kind of wish that this book, because Garrett is a hockey player, I wish I had more like hockey games or like him talking about hockey practice. I don't know, I feel like I didn't really see a lot of that in the book, and I really enjoy reading about sports. So yeah, 3 out of 5 stars. But I am gonna be picking up, I think, Jackson's Story, which is actually the 4th book in this series, but all these books are quite lengthy, so we'll see when I get to, I think, Fall With Me, the book is called. But it was a good read. I'm glad I picked it up. I think this is one of those books that is like trending, or this series is trending on TikTok, and now I know the deal. Okay, and the last book that I ended up finishing in October is The Death Watcher by Chris Carter, and I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. So this is the 13th book in the Robert Hunter series, in which we follow Robert Hunter and Carlos Garcia of the LAPD. They're in the ultra-violent unit, and in this book we have a killer who has been going unnoticed for many years, and he basically loves to torture people and watch them die slowly. And yeah, why this book failed miserably for me is because it didn't feel like a Chris Carter book. Usually I love reading Chris Carter because his books are gruesome and very detail oriented, so you will be reading very gruesome scenes and in very much detail. But this one very much lacked that, and it was way too long, way too info dumpy. Like, there was way too much detail that was unnecessary. In the end, I did end up liking the last 100 pages because that is where the story picked up, but I feel like the beginning, or like the first 3/4 of the book, were so lackluster, so slow paced. No wonder, like, I picked this book up as soon as it came out, which was in June or July of this year, and I literally just finished it on the last day of October 31st. Like, usually I fly through Chris Carter books, so yeah, I really miss like reading these gruesome, atrocious murders. This one just didn't do it for me, and yeah, that's why I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I haven't given a Chris Carter book below 3 stars yet, because I don't know, I still like his writing. I just need his stories to be gripping and like make my jaw open because I'm like so shocked at what I'm reading. So yeah guys, that is the 7 books I ended up finishing in the month of October. Let me know if you've read any of these books or what your favorite read of October was. For me, it was The Wingman, and I think even though I gave this book 4 stars, We Used to Live Here, because I'm not the biggest horror reader, but this one made me want to pick up more horror. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye guys.